New Zealand. The largest landmass above sea level of a vast continent that broke away from Gondwana land. 23 million years after the landscape emerged from the ocean depths, it's still as diverse as it is unique. Remote corners of this world have seldom been seen. Isolated and rugged, unique plants and creatures have evolved that are found nowhere else on Earth. Since the arrival of human life, this wilderness and many species have been under threat, some lost forever. But today, almost a third of this dynamic country has been protected. 14 national parks have been established to preserve this diverse landscape and the multitude of life that live here. Gus Roxburgh is an environmental specialist and adventure guide who's heading out to explore the country's wilderness and discover the often unseen backcountry world of these national parks. 125 years after the first national park was created, he wants to capture a sense of what these ever-evolving conservation parks have become through the people who work, play, and preserve the wilderness that is our national parks.
And I think you'll find it's quite possibly the best backyard in the world.
The west coast of southern New Zealand. A rugged, remote landscape wedged between the Tasman Sea to its west and the Great Southern Alps to the east. Thrust upward by the collision of tectonic plates. Gouged by rain and ice over 23 million years, the west coast is a wild terrain that continues to be shaped by the eroding forces of water. The moist northwest winds blow in from the Tasman Sea, forced skyward by the Alps. Clouds form and they cool before they eventually fall as rain. Plant species and bird life thrive in this wetland, many found nowhere else on Earth. Below ground, water eats into the limestone geology, creating undiscovered and unexplored cave systems, some hundreds of meters deep and over 60 kilometers long. Caverns that hold the DNA of species lost long ago. This primeval landscape has been protected in 3 conservation parks. Westland, Kahurangi and Paparoa national parks have been set aside as sanctuaries that continue to evolve. The jewels in the crown of the Westland Taipotini National Park are its longest glaciers, Franz Joseph and Fox. Rivers of ice, whose source is the moist air that freezes and falls at high altitudes as snow. The Fox Glacier trudges down from the Alps for 13 kilometers. This colossal mass of ice grinds and gouges down the steep mountain slope, scouring out a massive icy ravine.
Oh, it's the time-honoured way of guiding, isn't it? The old school pick there.
Yeah. Here and in Franz Joseph are about the only 2 places in the world where they still kind of guide like this.
Malcolm Richards guides tourists on the Fox, bringing the hidden world of this glacier to life. The surface of the glacier is pitted with crevasses, large sections split open by the buckling pressure of moving ice and then hollowed out by melting water.
You know, on the surface you've got that sort of white crust, so where it's been warmed up, or any air bubbles or gas bubbles in the ice will expand and take up more space. You start seeing the white. The blue ice is the hard, dense, really cold ice.
Beautiful, huh?
It's beautiful, eh? Check out the lines and the colours and the shapes. It's got these curves. It's almost sensual, eh? I might have spent a little bit too much time up here.
Maybe you have, mate. It's hard to imagine while you're here on this river of ice that it's actually advancing as we walk. The Fox Glacier is one of the fastest moving glaciers in the world.
You can see that high ground up here where it's really broken. That's the upper ice fall. That's the fastest moving part of this glacier, and the guesstimates are the maximum speed it can do there is about 5 metres a day.
That's pretty fast.
That's pretty fast. It's a really steep gradient. You know, from sea level to the top of the highest mountains are some of the steepest gradients in the world. Huge precipitation input. So up top we get average over 50 metres a year.
50 metres of snow up there.
Average.
That's
Big
outrageous.
year it goes, can double that. And up there you've got 32 square kilometres. It's like the same surface area as Christchurch City. And you imagine Christchurch City getting 50 metres of snow every year.
And then squeeze through that little
Exactly.
gap there. Well, how thick is the ice right where we are?
Where we're standing now, guesstimates are 200, 300 metres.
The immense scale of the Fox Glacier conveys an illusion of permanence, but like all glaciers, it's in a constant state of change, advancing and retreating in response to long-term patterns of snowfall and ice melt.
The glacier's been receding pretty hard out for the last 3 years now. See out here where the waterfall is, the peak I can remember of the advance here, that was under the ice.
No way, so just a few years ago?
So you'd be standing, if you were standing here, you couldn't see the waterfall. You actually had to fly over a helicopter and look in, and there'd be this tiny little hole with the waterfall going in underneath, and it was just a big scooped out hollow section under it.
This glacier may one day advance as it did during the last ice age. During that era, the glaciers of the west coast extended in a vast sheet of ice past the mountains and beyond the current coastline. And as the ice and water continue to erode their way through layers of mountain rock, ancient treasures are revealed. Nephrite jade, or pounamu, is a sacred stone formed through extreme heat and pressure deep within the Earth's crust. Lifted to the surface with the upthrust of the Southern Alps, pounamu is unlocked by erosion. Having spent millions of years underground, this precious stone is carried from the mountains by the streams and rivers that run to the coast. An extremely hard stone, pounamu was invaluable to ancient Maori, and it's still found in rivers of the coast today.
If you were living in the old days, tools were made from stone.
Right.
And of course, to have a stone that would hold an edge like the pounamu does, man, it would make life so much easier. It's tough. You could make adzes and chisels, and it would hold that edge, so you weren't sharpening it all the time.
Jeff Mauika is a classic, a master carver who made the pounamu pendants for the 2012 New Zealand Olympic team. As a representative of the iwi that has customary rights to this river, Jeff's one of the few people who are allowed to collect one of the most unique varieties of pounamu, a tradition he has followed for 30 years.
We do find pounamu here on the Makawhio, but it's not the typical type of pounamu that you'll find in any of the other rivers here, because it's actually a blue stone. It's called Aotea, and this is the only river in New Zealand that you find it.
Jeff tells me that the blue Aotea found in the Makawhio River is softer than most pounamu. It's quartz mixed with green fukite and blue kyanite.
I will have...
No, that's not it, is
no,
it?
that's a bit of leave it right.
Right.
Yeah, and that means leave it right where you found it. There's a lot of that stone here.
What about if we find some of the Aotea?
If we find a piece of Aotea, you won't be asking me, is this a piece? You'll know straight away.
And you just wander up and down like this if you were looking?
No, I would generally walk from one bank to the edge of the river, and I'd zigzag,
Okay.
zigzag, or whatnot.
Is that that's that bluish stuff there, is it?
That's a piece of Aotea.
That's it.
That's beautiful. That's the beautiful stuff.
It's amazing colour, eh?
It's amazing colour. You won't walk past that stone.
That's beautiful, isn't it? Look at that colour coming out.
Beautiful. It looks even more beautiful with your spit on it.
Can I take that? Got to stay here?
No, you give it to me.
It's yours, mate.
A little beginner's luck, but it definitely gives me a taste for the lure of this ancient stone.
What I love about pounamu is the gathering of pounamu. You don't get it off the internet. You have to head into the bush, and basically I'm walking the same trails that my ancestors were walking. They are guiding me and protecting me, because it can be very dangerous in remote areas, especially the rugged West Coast. It's one of the ruggedest pieces of landscape in New Zealand.
If it wasn't for the rugged landscape, worn away by constant forces of ice and rain, the precious pounamu would never have been released into the rivers of the West Coast. But not all treasures that this watery world reveals are found on the surface of these national parks. There are secrets hidden deep below, hundreds of meters down. As water drives into the limestone geology, it carves out massive cave systems, deep caverns where no light has been seen, where few people have ever stepped. The west coast of the South Island, Kaiki, the Pancake Rocks. These unique limestone formations evolved as the skeletons of tiny marine creatures fell to the sea floor over millions of years. Layer after layer of this crustaceous debris were driven skyward by massive tectonic movement that thrust a section of the seabed above the ocean's surface. Waves, wind and rain pounded the exposed limestone, etching out the spectacular pancake-like formations. This unusual landform is nestled on the coast as a dynamic feature of the Paparoa National Park. The newest and smallest of our national parks is found halfway between Greymouth and Westport. Moving inland from Punakaiki, the spectacular landscape continues. Shaped by rainwater that picks up carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and mulch from the forest floor, this solution forms a weak carbonic acid that seeps into the crevices and cracks, dissolving the limestone.
What do you call these holes in the ground up here?
Tomos is the Maori name. It means hole. Waitomo is water hole.
Right. Neil Silverwood and his father Kerry are leading me into cataract myopia,
Is this where we're off to?
one of many hidden doorways into Paparoa National Park's damp underworld. A place where you can literally witness limestone eroding before your eyes.
We go places where no one's ever been, even though it might be only 3 or 4 hours from the road, and that's a nice feeling.
This is one of maybe 1,000, maybe 10,000 holes. We've only been down a scattering of those over the years. We wander through the bush looking for holes, chucking rocks down there, seeing how deep they are. And if they sound deep, we put a rope down, abseil down and see what's there. And literally 1 in 100 actually goes somewhere. So it's a bit like fishing. Every now and then you get lucky, but most of the time you don't.
This is a pretty small one compared to what you're used to, right?
It's a decent shaft. This is 40 metres. So you know you're alive when you clip onto the rope. So 40 metres is a long way.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for you, Gus.
Give it a shot.
Knowing I'm dropping into this barely explored underworld where so few have been is a surreal and slightly nerve-wracking experience. We're going where water has been before, where ancient streams once flowed, eroding channels in the rock. The earth beneath Paparoa National Park is like a limestone Swiss cheese, riddled with infinite holes, shafts, passages, and giant caverns. All a result of constant rainfall working its way through the rock over millions of years. Some of the ancient water systems are a bit of a squeeze.
Oh man, I don't know. Right now, golf seems much more sensible sport.
It's a means to an end, you know, like you go through this sort of stuff and every now and then you hit some beautiful, amazing pastures, and it's all worth it.
Neil holds the national caving depth record. He's been down over 1,024 metres. He also discovered the country's largest cave system, 15 kilometres of underground passages that he named Megamania. In the mazes of underground passages through the Paparoa limestone, he's experienced the thrill of going where no other human being has ever been.
Once in a lifetime, you know, you'd stumble on a passage this size, and it's yeah, an amazing feeling after all the work and the energy you put into finding them. You walk into something like this, it's incredible. Be the first person here, first footprints.
How do you celebrate down here?
Yeah, cave is a pretty understated, really. You know, we're like nice passage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good on you.
Good on you, mate.
Above the unexplored and untamed depths of the limestone caves, Paparoa National Park's coast is equally wild terrain. Lashed by wind, rain and swell generated in the Tasman Sea, it's an environment where only the tough survive. Among the hardy creatures that make this place home is a remarkable seafaring bird, the Westland petrel. This colony of petrels, just 4 kilometers from Punakaiki, have returned to breed after months roaming the seas around South America.
Looks like a bunch of burrows here, Chippy.
Yeah, no, they're all over the place. You've got to be really careful.
So just watch my footing around here?
Yeah, you just stay exactly where I'm walking.
Dock Officer Graham Wood, better known as Chippy, visits the colony regularly to monitor the health of the remaining population of 4,000 birds, in the only place on Earth where they touch land. Other ground nesting petrels have disappeared from mainland New Zealand, but these big belligerent birds hold their own against predators.
They're survivors. You know, they're still here on mainland New Zealand, and just about everything else is gone.
Westland petrels are known to be fierce, and to do his job, Chippy has to catch them. Extra burrow openings have been installed for easy access.
Yes.
I can hear him scurrying around in there.
Yeah, you can feel him through the ground, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just sort of nibbling at me. Oop. He's got my stick.
So there's definitely one
There's
in there,
someone
eh?
home, yeah. We're going to take band numbers off these, so I'll give you my notebook.
Okay.
And if you can write down the band number.
What's the technique here, Chippy?
He bites me. So I put my finger out like that and he'll bite the glove. They've got a big hook on the tip.
Yeah.
And I press my thumb onto the top of that, press his hook into the leather, and then I can pull him out.
Good luck down there. I'm ready with the pencil.
Hey!
He got you?
Yeah.
Is it painful?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is, isn't it?
It is. Right.
Oh, wow. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, very handsome birds, aren't they?
Oh, he actually seems pretty happy to see you.
And he's got a band. Look at the tip on that beak, man. That's,
Yeah, that is pretty sharp, isn't it?
fish aren't going to get away from that, are they? 22438.
22438.
Chippy's care with these birds is the mark of a man who has devoted 18 years to the preservation of this species.
So 18 years, is that how long you've been growing the beard too?
No, no, it's a lifetime's effort.
The Westland petrel isn't the only rare bird striving to survive on the wild west coast. The wetlands and lush rainforests of this habitat are home to some of New Zealand's most iconic endangered birds. Westland Taipotini National Park, the southernmost of the 3 parks west of the Southern Alps. Its isolation has created an environment that is home to some of New Zealand's rarest animals and plants. Like much of this primeval landscape, these species have survived and evolved with the soggy forces that still shape this habitat today. Okarito is the largest unmodified wetland remaining in New Zealand.
It's amazing, Richard, to think that, I guess back in the early European days, you would have come up a river like this, hopped off on the bank and said, I'll make my farm here.
Exactly, and this place is pretty much as the first Europeans would have seen it. There's very little change, very little modification, so we are quite lucky that this area still remains.
Richard Saunders is an eco-guide who cherishes the wetlands that remain. How much of our wetlands are left? We've drained a lot of them, haven't we?
Well, it's like, 10 or 15% of what we originally had. Huge loss of them, Huge amount of drainage for agriculture and other purposes. It could have easily happened here, but for the inaccessibility of the place in the old days without roads and things like that. So it's fortunate for us it didn't. I definitely think wetlands are a lot more valued these days, because in the old days they would have just called this a swamp, which conjures up poor images. But the value of wetlands has been established as flood prevention, the number of species that they sustain, and it's places like this. This is where a whitebait's breeding, up in here and on the grasses in these river channels. So
well, that's pretty important to you coasters, isn't it?
It's got to be, yeah. Something I always make people do is stop paddling, sit quiet, 5 minutes, absolute silence, and sometimes that can be a challenge for some, but once you do, then you really start to hear the sounds of the forest, the bird life, and just the silence. I think a lot of people come from places where silence is something they just never experience.
Beautiful, isn't it? It's like the forest where time began.
Yep, absolutely.
When 85% of New Zealand's wetlands were drained, primarily for dairy farming, the kahikatea trees were felled. The soft, white, odourless wood made good boxes for exporting cheese and butter.
Places with big stands of old-growth kahikatea like this are really rare now. Southwesterns are really where the last remnants of them are. North Island used to be covered in them, but mostly all gone. They like conditions like this, low-lying, wet areas. 400 or 500 years in the maturity of these trees, so they go back a long way.
The remaining trees at Okarito are standing firm. This stunning sanctuary is a reminder of what's truly at stake in our national parks whenever there's a battle between commerce and preservation. That's not forgetting that there's an abundance of unique wildlife that also call these wetlands home. The kotuku, or eastern great egret. Blown here over 150 years ago by the same moist westerly winds that bring the rain. Their surrogate home is here in New Zealand, and their only breeding ground, the wetlands at Okarito.
They've always been a naturally low population because it's almost an anomaly that they're here. They're usually a bird of the tropics. They've been blown across the Tasman Sea on a big westerly storm, and it's beyond their powers of flight to fly all the way back. So the temperature here, the climate, is a limiting factor for them.
The wetland provides enough whitebait, flounder and other small animals to feed about 45 breeding pairs of kotuku. Back in the day, they're another bird that we almost wiped out, aren't they?
Yep, the feathers became very popular for ladies' hats back in the Victorian era, and at one stage they got down to 4 breeding pairs left before it was deemed a nature reserve.
The Kotuku's survival in Okarito is a clear case of saved in the nick of time. Otherwise, the only sign of this gorgeous bird would have been on the New Zealand $2 coin.
Nestled beside the Okarito wetlands is the lowland forest, home to one of the rarest birds on Earth, the Rui Kiwi, found nowhere else on the planet. With a phenomenal sense of smell, the nostrils on the end of his beak can detect prey up to 15 centimeters underground. They can live for up to 100 years, but only if they can survive the predators that are constantly on the prowl. Today, there are just 375 of this variety left in the wild around Okarito.
At the West Coast Wildlife Centre, a rare Roi Kiwi chick is about to hatch. Kiwi Ranger Kim Brian Walker mimics the behaviour of a parent kiwi by whistling to the egg. This encourages the chick inside the egg to begin hatching. Most of the time, Kim keeps the egg in a warm incubator. Hatching can take up to 3 days. Each new chick is precious. Roi are slow breeders and lay just 1 egg a year. In the wild, 19 out of 20 hatchlings are killed before they reach adulthood, mainly by stoats. But this bird won't be released until it weighs at least 1 kilogram and can defend itself. Over the next few days, the chick's health is constantly monitored.
Hey, little guy. That's a beautiful one.
So he's just 10 days old today.
Kiwi incubation manager Bridget Wren names the chick Aoraki.
You can see why they wanted to make cloaks out of these. These feathers are just beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah.
Really soft.
Soft and downy, so the base of every feather is where the downy part is, rather than having completely separate down feathers like the average bird does. Come on, little fella.
Each day she gives it a full health check and records its weight.
So 275 grams.
Bridget, you don't actually know whether this is a little guy or a little girl yet.
As little chicks, you can't tell, but as they get older, the female will grow larger in size. Her bill gets longer in length, and then the male and female do have different calls if you're out listening for them at night time.
Yeah, Ricky, time for a feed, little guy.
We're just going to sit him down here, so
Okay.
chances are he's going to just sit quite happily on your knee without needing to restrain him.
At 10 days old, Aoraki is ready for solids.
Naturally out in the wild, the kiwis would normally eat any sort of invertebrate, so anything moving around in the soil. So bugs and worms and things like that, they need lots of protein. But because in a captive facility, we can't give them enough and the right variety for them to grow correctly, we give them an artificial diet, which is a mixture of ox heart, fruit and veggies, cat biscuits, wheat germ and a mineral supplement, and that gives them all the protein and things that they need to grow.
Yeah, well, if he keeps going like this, he's going to keep putting the weight on, isn't he?
Yeah, he's learned how to use the chopsticks on the end of his face.
He's done great.
In around 15 months, Aoraki should be ready to brave the elements and begin life in the wild wetlands of Okarito.
The survival of the Rui Kiwi now depends entirely upon intervention against stoats and other predators. and possums are also having a disastrous impact up and down the west coast. But there are a growing number of locals taking up arms to defend their national park. The Paparoa National Park. This is as rugged and dense as the New Zealand rainforest gets. The moist, warm winds produce a microclimate that causes rich subtropical vegetation to flourish, like the Nico palm. There are over 1,000 palm species in the world, but the Nico is only found in New Zealand, and they thrive in this west coast climate. This is a unique rainforest habitat, but pockets of it have been under threat for over 100 years.
It's the nearest thing to the Amazon without all the nasties, really. It's kind of got the best tree to people ratio in the country.
Reuben Lane works in the park as an animal pest culler.
We'll see how good you are. Love the smell of gunpowder.
When he's not taking down wild goats with his flintlock musket, Reuben's days are spent fighting one of the park's worst enemies, the brush-tailed possum.
Possums are amazing creatures. New Zealanders are used to seeing them squashed on the road and don't really think of them as a beautiful resource that we can use.
I got one, Reuben.
Yep.
Nice one.
The species was introduced from Australia in 1837 to start a fur trade. With no natural enemies, they thrived. There are now 30 million possums scoffing 9,000 tonnes of leaves, berries and fruit in New Zealand every night. They can strip trees bare, and they also eat the eggs and chicks of native birds. Reuben fights them using a special potion.
So this is my lab.
Oh, love it. The man cave.
Yep. This is full of anal glands from possums. It's pretty potent stuff if you want to have a sniff.
I don't know, do I?
Yeah.
Reuben uses the mixture to lure possums to traps or poison.
There's the scent glands from, you know, at least 24 possums in each bottle. So when you squirt it up the tree next to your lure or your trap or whatever you're using, it tells the other possums it's a feeding frenzy.
Poison is mixed with icing sugar and flour and placed in tins.
So that'll bring them in, eh? They'll come,
oh, yeah. Yep.
They'll come running.
Yep.
Excellent. You're like the Pied Piper, mate.
Yeah.
Reuben kills up to 500 possums a year.
Ode a possum's ass work's a treat there.
Yeah, it's
Reuben?
not bad. Ever since I can remember, I've been into trapping things and skinning them. I remember trying to make a mouse for a coat when I was a little kid. But to me, it's kind of strange not being into it. Hunting and fishing and trapping. I mean, when you think about it, people have been doing it for the last million years that we've been walking upright. It's kind of weird not to.
Reuben contributes to the well-being of Paparoa while earning himself a bit of pocket money. He turns possum skins into bedspreads and rugs to sell locally. It's not been legal to sell possum meat since the 80s when it was marketed internationally as Kiwi bear.
I think we sort of need to get over ourselves and realise that possums are here to stay. We need to make good use of them and stop treating them as a pest and think of them more as a resource.
Unless we find a way to eliminate possums, which doesn't seem likely, cullers like Reuben form the front line in battling the possum threat to Paparoa and other national parks.
Kahurangi National Park. A short distance up the coast from Paparoa, the second largest conservation park in New Zealand boasts the longest of the country's 9 great walks, the Heaphy. At 78 kilometres, trampers take between 4 and 6 days to complete the track. The Heaphy follows a route used for hundreds of years by Maori, seeking pounamu on the west coast. A cleared track was first cut by gold prospectors in the 1860s. But in recent times, it has been the organic treasures of the region that have motivated people to walk the track. It traverses what is essentially a living herbarium. This humid refuge contains more than half the country's native plant species. Hidden in the undergrowth are large carnivorous snails. Found in the higher altitude forest, they can grow to the size of a fist, spending their nights hunting for earthworms. In the rainforest canopy above the track, threatened South Island kaka feed on honeydew and nectar. Their survival jeopardized by introduced possums and wasps, which compete for the same food sources.
For the last 2 winters, a new species has also been introduced along the Heaphy Track. Controversially, it's been opened up to cyclists. It's an experiment to assess the impact new activities might have on this popular walking trail.
On the Heaphy Track, it's a beautiful single track. There's rocks and roots, and it's not just a path that you're just sort of cycling on. It's travelling at a pace that you can, if there's something you want to see, if you see an awesome snail or some birds or a cool plant or wide open views, you can just stop and take it all in.
Mandy and John are mountain bike guides and were two of the first to bike the track. And between them, they've already ridden it 9 times.
Right, John.
Ready?
Yeah.
Curse of those sharp rocks, eh?
Can you grab the pump, Mandy?
Here you go, John boy.
You guys take cyclists all over the world. How does the Heaphy rate compare to all that?
The Heaphy's great. Well, it's the world's best multi-day mountain bike ride. We believe it is.
What's the fastest someone's ridden this? It's what, 78 k's, the whole thing?
Yep. There's a Golden Bay man, Bruce, just under 6 hours last week.
What's your record, John?
I'll keep that private. I do it for fun and to enjoy it.
Mandy can kick your ass, I'm sure.
Mandy can kick my ass. She was always faster than me going up hills, especially. Yeah. She's got the calf muscles.
Yeah. Yeah, what happened down there?
Genetic.
The cycle experiment will be reviewed this year, but it looks to be a successful concept that will just add to the lure of the Heaphy Track. And it's already enticed the first ever unicyclist.
And he's got to be mad. There it is, the finish line.
Yeah. Oh man, that's quite something.
Ken, Gus,
G'day.
how are you, mate? Congratulations. I've been hearing rumours about you for the last couple of days. That is an impressive effort.
That was, yeah.
It's taken Ken Louis a remarkable 3 days to complete the Heaphy, but he's just one of many to have cycled the track this season as Doc tried to balance the needs of different users of the park.
Kahurangi National Park draws thousands every year to this wild and unexplored landscape. Hidden in the depths of the park's underworld lies a treasure trove of primeval secrets. Kahurangi National Park is one of the most biodiverse wilderness sanctuaries in New Zealand. From the air, it's easy to see why Kahurangi translates as treasured possession. High plateaux merge into the wild rivers that navigate their way to coastal forests. In the remote northwest stands one of the most isolated lighthouses in the country at Kahurangi Point. The lighthouse keeper's residence nearby has been converted into a tramper's hut, one of almost 1,000 huts in our national parks. This network provides shelter for walkers in some of the remotest reaches of our wilderness. Ranging from service lodges along the Great Walks to basic bivvies on remote mountainsides, the humble tramping hut has become an iconic part of our outdoors heritage. And Kahurangi is also home to a more unique shelter. The honeycomb hill caves near Okarito hold primeval secrets that few have ever seen. Caverns that hold the DNA of species lost long ago. the preserved remains of the extinct moa.
There's about 50-something entrances throughout, and
To this one cave system?
yeah,
Wow.
and maybe 13 plus kilometres of passage.
Mel Hansen knows this cave better than anyone else.
It's quite easy to get misplaced in there.
We're also joined by New Zealand's foremost Moa expert, Quinn Berenson, who regards this site as the holy grail of Moa remains.
I'm very excited. It's kind of the last stop on my journey around New Zealand following the moa, and it's the big one, you know, it really is.
Just watch your feet as you're coming down this bit here.
These caves contain the country's largest collection of subfossil bones of at least 56 different species.
The way the limestone's eroded, it's left a lot of open sort of fissures to the surface, and the birds wandering along sort of quite innocently doing their routine thing in the forest would stumble down them, and that's why we're now looking at the different bits and pieces that are in here. Down in there.
Some of these bones have lain where they fell for 10,000 years.
Oh, check it out, those things are huge.
Awesome, and that's not even the biggest species probably, that's kind of a medium-sized one, I'd say.
Really?
The biggest ones, which were the giant moa, were sort of 2 metres high at the back, and at full stretch they would have been 3.5 metres.
Seriously?
So the tallest birds ever to live on the planet. Yep, up to say 300 kilograms, the biggest ones. So big birds.
Big drumstick down there too.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, unfortunately for them, they were a bit too tasty for their own good, I think.
Moa became extinct soon after the first people arrived in New Zealand, possibly as soon as 50 years later. They were easy to hunt and provided a lot of meat, especially Dinornis maxima, the largest of the 9 species.
So, Mel, what's going on with this guy here?
He's probably fallen in the big fissure in the roof here. He's wandered over here, maybe trying to get out, and his injuries have got him, and he's finally pegged out.
So, what's the conventional wisdom now, Quinn, on when the last of these died out?
Well, in terms of physical evidence, in terms of bones, there's nothing, you know, younger than 400 or 500 years. But of course, there's stories and rumours and sightings and things. So, you know, I'm prepared to believe that a few hung in the most remote areas of New Zealand until, you know, the 1800s. And I think it was the introduced pests that probably finished off the last few.
Makes you wonder what else is out in Kahurangi though, doesn't it?
Well, probably the best still to come. Yeah, a lot of our sort of real treasures are beneath the surface, and like most treasures, you don't know you've got them until you find them.
And that's a good thought to take away from the national parks of the wild West Coast. At face value, they're landscapes of spectacular and varied beauty. But the true magic of these places is knowing that hidden within their boundaries are infinite treasures yet to be discovered.
The national parks of the West Coast. Rugged and remote. A landscape that continues to grow and erode. A lush wilderness that provides a nursery for some of the most diverse vegetation and bird life in the country. Undiscovered and unexplored caverns may forever hold secrets from our past. From their low-lying wetlands to dramatic glaciers and limestone geology, these 3 conservation parks capture an epic charm and magic that can only be the wild West Coast.